Hey boys and girls, so what we're going to be creating today is a random level generator. It looks like a little actor like that in the world. Let me just delete that one over here. It's just a little billboard like that, and it's got some info down here about the number of tiles that we're going to be spawning and yada yada. Let's just hit simulate. So we get a world like this with different tiles everywhere, and the tiles are different every single time, like so. So if we look at what we've got one with blocks on it, we've got one with cylinders on it, and we have another one that's like a tower. And each of those tiles is spawned in a random order every single time. And we can also add specific tiles like this one here that'll spawn once somewhere random in each different configuration. We can also put in specific tiles that at specific coordinates as well. So instead of having it spawn randomly at a particular spot, we could say the player start is always in a particular corner, and then you could have something like a finish which spawns somewhere random every single time. And we can also copy this randomizer blueprint, put another one over here like that, and if we hit play, we'll now get two of them just like that. So we can connect different ones together. Inside of here we've got the number of tiles that each one takes up, so we can change that to 1 and 1, and we'll only get one tile for this guy now. You can make that something enormous like 20 and 20 if you wanted, and you can change the number of levels that you have in each one as well, so you can have as many levels as you want to choose from and to randomly generate a map from. Can have all different names, and you can put them at different spaces apart as well. And here's the tab for our specific info. So that's what we're going to be creating today. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to create a new folder down here, and we're going to call this randomized levels. Crack that open. The first thing that we'll do is we'll create a blueprint. So right click, blueprint class, actor. We're going to call this random level generator. Alright, crack that open. The first thing that we might do is just add a billboard in, and we're going to call that center. And this is just going to help us when we're designing levels to it's just going to give us an idea of where the center of the level is and where it's going to generate outwards from. So I'm just going to make that any old picture thing. It doesn't really matter, just so it's easy to click on. So that's that. The next thing that we want to do is we'll want to generate a grid of points that we can spawn levels at. So to do that, we'll go to begin play in the event graph, and we're going to say for loop, sorry, not for each loop, for loop, add another for loop, and one of these is going to be we'll go minus integer off the last index, and that's going to be num x there, and then copy that over here for this one here. This is going to be num y, so promote to variable num y, and that is on the wrong pin. The reason that you want to -1 off of these variables here is, say that the number of x tiles is, you want it to be 5 tiles. This for loop runs from 0 through to whatever number is in there. So if this was 5 and you didn't have this here, this is going to run 0 and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 6 times. By minusing the 1 off that, we make sure that this loop will run 5 times. And the same for this. So now that we've got that, let's go ahead and promote this index here to a variable, and we're just going to call that loop x. And this is just going to help us keep our event graph nice and tidy. By caching this variable off there each time that this runs, we'll be able to call this index all the way over here without having to drag all the nodes across and make a big mess. So we'll do the same thing for the y. We'll go loop y. Okay. Now to spawn the actual levels in, the node that we want to use, I believe, is say get streaming level, and then off of that return value we're going to say create instance, and that's going to go up there. Now for the instance name, we're going to say, append, and we're going to add pin, and in the A we're going to put loop X, and then in B we're going to put a little cross, and then in C we've got loop Y. Basically, when you use this node, this create instance node, every single level that's created needs a unique name, and by naming them after their position in the grid that we've generated, each one will obviously be unique. So that's a good way to do that. Now the next thing that we want to do, we need to use a name here, so we might actually just go ahead and create some levels really quick. This map here that I've got, I basically just went new level and I hit default, and that's the default map here. So if we go up to the top right here, and if we click on levels, we can actually add in new levels up into here. So that's what we're going to do. If you go levels in the drop down and click create new, I've called this one test_P, I think. Is this it? Yeah, test_P. And P is just for persistent, because this is the persistent level, as you can see up here. So this map that we're going to create now, this is going to be the very first tile in our randomly generated grid. So it's just going to be one tile of many that can be spawned at any particular point. So this one, we might just call this one, I don't know, T1 for tile 1. Boom. Now if we hide the persistent level, that is not going to work. Oh yes, maybe it will. Maybe let's just chuck in a cube into the world, make sure that T1 is selected up here. We're going to set that cube's position to 0 and 0 like that. And how big is this thing? I think it's about 100 across. Yeah, so that grid's 100, that looks about 100. So if we scale that to maybe, I don't know, 10 by 10, so that should be 1,000 across each way. Maybe we should go a bit bigger. Maybe we'll go 50 by 50. No, 20 by 20 might be nice. So we have a tile that's 2,000 by 2,000 across. Now on top of this, actually before we do that, maybe I can, yeah, so let's put some shapes in. So I don't know, that there, this over here, so this is just basically a friggin' cylinder tile. Now if we go up here, can we duplicate this? No, we can't duplicate it up there. So we'll go down into our content browser, go into maps wherever you saved that tile, and we're going to go Control W to duplicate that, and now this is T2. So if we drag that into there and hide the first one, this is T2. We might make this a bit different to T1. So I don't know, chuck in some cubes or something like that. Sick. So that's T2, and then maybe what we'll do is we'll go one more and just go T3, and oops, drag T3 up here, hide T2, and T3 maybe can just be, I don't know, blank with a big towering cube structure thing. Cool, man. So that's T3. So we can hide that and bring back our persistent level, and we might as well delete this. Actually, before we delete that, let's go into content, wherever the hell I saved that random level generator. So we'll put that in the middle at 0, 0, and then we'll delete the floor. So this is what I, whoops, where the hell did you just go? Maybe that's because this is broken. Oh, I accidentally clicked on T3 somehow. What the hell? Where's our generator going? Oh well. Drag it in. So now that's in the middle of the map at the persistent level. So persistent level coordinates are 0, 0. And that's why we have the big billboard, so it's actually easy to click on, otherwise it'd be really hard to find it and see it. Okay, so that's in there. Make sure that's in the persistent level, because that's in, if that's in any of these other ones, it'll cause problems. So let's go back into our random level generator. And now each time we want to create an instance, each time we want to spawn a level, we need the package name. So the package names back in maps over here is T1, T2, T3. And in order for this node to be able to read those, I do believe that they have to be up here in your persistent level, so make sure that they're up here. They can be hidden, that's fine. So what we want to do is we want to get a random package name each time that this create instance is called. So what we can do here is we can say get copy. Over here we will promote this to a variable which we will call level names. And then off of level names we can say get last index. And then off that we're going to say random integer in range. And the max is going to be the last index. So now every time this node is called, it's going to get a streaming level from this array with a name from this array, and the name that it gets is going to be a random element of that array. Okay, cool. So if we go into this here, we might as well set that to public, and then we'll add some names in here. So we can go T1, T2, and T3. Now I do believe, okay, so that's not going to work just yet, and the reason why is because we need to set a transform of these levels. So if we drag off this and we say set level transform, this is where we actually position all of these levels out in a grid, because at the moment it's just going to spawn them all at 0, 0, 0. So over here we'll say make transform, and for location we're going to drag off this and say make vector. We'll leave Z as 0 because we don't really want to play with the elevation. But for X and Y, what we're going to do is we're going to grab our loop X and our loop Y, and then we're going to multiply those by a float, and that float is going to be level size. So if you noticed, back in here when we made these 3 levels here, they were all on the same piece on the floor, and that piece is the same size, and the size of that we determined was 2000 by 2000. So if we go into here, a level size, we want that to default to 2000 like that, and then we'll plug that into X, and then do the same thing for Y. Boom, like that. Oopsie daisies. Now I do believe that should work. We might just make num X and num Y public and set those to 5 each. Like that. Beautiful. Alright, let's see if this actually works. So I'll just hide that. Persistent level. Simulate. Not yet. Okay. Now I wonder why that is. Maybe we need to go off this and say should be, yeah, okay. So we actually need to tell this node to make these levels visible. So if we drag off the return value and say should be loaded, oops, set should be loaded, and we'll also say set should be visible, like that, and we'll set those both to true. And actually, you know what we might do is we might just cut that, and we'll do the transform first and then put these after, so that it actually sets the correct location before it then makes them visible and loaded. Okay, let's give that a go. Okay, brilliant, look at that. Bam. A random procedural world. That actually looks cool with the little gaps in between the blocks. Neat. Oh, we've got an error. What do we got here? Okay, so I figured out what the error was. It turns out that I had a random level generator hidden in one of these sub-levels. So that was trying to generate levels, and it didn't have any name assigned. So that was what the error was coming from. So that's all good. Now, where were we? I added a little should block on load there, node there as well. And the reason that I added that in is because now when you hit play, they all spawn at once. Before they all spawned one at a time. It was like it was tiling it out. Now they all spawn together like that. So that's cool. That's pretty much done, I think. One other thing that we could do is because right at the moment we've got our little center point here. That's all spawning out from the center of this tile all the way out that way. What we could do is we could get these tiles to all spawn around that center point in the middle. So wherever you put this little billboard, it'll generate the map around that point. That'd probably be neater. So the way that we do that is we take these, we'll break these off here, and we need to get a value for the size of the entire grid. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to get numx, and we're going to go times by float, and that float is going to be the level size, and now that'll be the entire size of the x. And then if we copy that over here like this, and then we get num_y and put that in there, that'll be the entire size of the y-axis. And now if we divide both of those by 2, we'll be able to get the center. So if we go divided by float, 2, copy, 2, like that. So now these are values for the center. So if we then take this value here, and then we go minus float, just drag this out of the way, and then we minus the value for the center off of that, and then plug that into x, and then do the same thing over here for this one, for the y. I do believe that'll get it generating around the center point. Boom, just like that. So we'll do that again. I mean, I think that worked. Maybe that spawned from the corner that time. It spawned from the corner of the center tile. At the moment, that's the center point there. It's actually spawning around the right tile, but it's spawning from the corner of that tile. So what we need to do is we need to add half a width of that and half a length, and then that should spawn dead in the center. So if we go back into here, into our random level generator, and we say add float, that'll be level size, div by float, div by 2. And then we plug that into there, and then that into x. So now that's the x sorted out. Now if we do this again over here, let's just tidy this up a bit. Add into there, level size divided by 2. I might just stack that under like that, and then add that into y up there. Let me just do this like this as well. Keep it neat, you know. Okay, so now if we save and then hit play, boom, dead in the center. So we can change the values for this as well. So if we click on that and go, I don't know, 11 by 11, save, play, give it a second, boom, just like that. Massive map, 11 by 11, completely random and different every single time. Let's have a look at what this is like in the center. It's pretty cool, hey? Could be a cool little world. Okay, so that's all well and good. So the next thing that we could do with this is we could collapse this whole level spawning part into a function. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to drag level names out here. I'm just going to double click that to add a reroute node, and then plug that into there. And then I'm going to highlight all of this from that reroute node, like that. Oh yes, we'll do that. And then right click, and then we're going to go collapse to function. And then this is going to be called pick and spawn level from array. So now what we've got is a neat little function which takes in an array of level names. So we'll call that level names. And then what that function is going to do is it's going to pick a random level name, and then it's going to spawn it in the grid at the current loop and the current x and the current y. So that's neat. So if we wanted, we could just take that out and we could add an entirely different set of levels there. And the reason that we want to do this as a function like this is because now what we can do is we can drag this out a bit here, and we can also say, maybe we can put a branch here, and we can add certain conditions for particular loops loop X and loop Y to spawn different groups of levels. So the reason that might be important is, say if you have a big old map like this, and your player spawns, I don't know, you could spawn in the center. Maybe there's an exit tile somewhere that you want the player to get to, and what you could do is you could select a random group of coordinates in here, and then make sure that when the loop gets to those coordinates, it can spawn that particular tile instead of a random one. So what you'd end up with is a unique world every single time with an exit in a different place every single time. And you could do the same for the player start. You could move the player's start to somewhere random every single time as well. So let's give that a go now. We're going to go back to our test map here. We're going to right click, we're going to go to blueprints, and we're going to create a new structure. And a structure is just basically a variable that can hold several other variables together. So what we're going to call this is we're going to call this specific level info. Okay, we'll crack that open. The first variable that we're going to have in here is we're going to call coordinates. And we're going to make that a vector. Click new variable, and then we're going to say maybe level names, and we're going to make that a name, and we might even make that an array like that. Cool, so we can close that down. And I just remembered one more thing. If you go back into your function here, your level creating function, one thing that we didn't do, which we could have, is the location is all well and good, but another thing that we could do is we could change the rotation of each tile. So if we drag off this and we say times by scale rotator, no, hang on. What if we say make rotator? Yeah, let's say make rotator, because we don't want to rotate the X and Y, we just want to rotate the Z. And the amount that we want to rotate the Z is going to be 90 multiplied by, sorry, let's go int multiplied by float. And the float is going to be 90 degrees. And the integer is going to be random integer in range between 0 and 3. So if it draws a 0, it won't rotate. If it draws a 1, it'll rotate 90 degrees, 2, 180 degrees, 3, 270 degrees. So each tile will have a random rotation of an integer multiple of 90 degrees. So if we hit simulate, and that's not going to work because I forgot to connect this back up. Oops. Simulate. Beautiful. So it probably doesn't look much different because all the tiles are pretty spastic and random. But if we look, maybe we can look at these ones here. So maybe, so these ones, it has a 3 together down there. This one here is obviously in the same orientation as that one. But then this one up here, that's been rotated. So you can tell that's working. One word of caution when you're doing that is if we go into our sub-levels here, is you'll want to make sure that these are centered right on 0, 0, 0. If this was, say, over here like this, then what would happen is it would rotate around that 0 point and it would start to clash with other levels. So you want to make sure that that's on 0, 0, 0. Okay, so that's all good. We'll go back to our persistent level and back into this random level generator. And now what we're going to do is we're going to click new variable, and we're going to call this specific level info. And if we go up to the type, we're going to change it to our specific level info struct. And we might even make this an array. Okay, so if we hit compile and save, that's all well and good. And then what we're going to do is, so for each coordinate, we might make that public as well. Actually, let's add a entry into this. So expand that coordinates. Let's say, by the way, this coordinates is going to correspond to the integer x and the integer y. I just like to keep it in a vector because even though it's a float value in here, it's just easier to enter it. I haven't found another way to do that, so this works. So let's say at position 2, 2, we're going to create a level of level name, I don't know, let's just call it fin for finish. Okay, and this is an array, So we could have a bunch of different levels, but let's say we just want to make sure that there's a single finish in every single level at 2.2. This is how we do it. So because that's called fin, we need to go back in here and we'll need to go content, maps. We'll grab T3, duplicate that, and call that fin. Oops. And then if we drag fin up into our thingamabob up here, we can delete these like this. Maybe we'll add in a cone for fin. Set you to 0, 0, 0, or scale you up like that. And maybe just so we can see it a bit easier, do we have a different color? I don't know, we'll make you bloody random colored thing like that. So that's the finish. You want to get to the multicolored rainbow cone. So we can hide that now, go back to our persistent level. Now what we want to do is, so for every coordinate, we're going to break this and we're going to say for each. We're going to break the thingamabob there, the struct there, and we're going to break the vector. We're going to round the x, round the y, and then we're going to say equal int. What we might do actually is we might just collapse this entire thing into a function, and we'll call this check for specific level info, just to keep this nice and tidy, and then we can have this off the end like that. So if we go into this, where we've got our specific level info array, we're breaking that on each element, we're getting the coordinates that we've defined in there, we're rounding that to an integer, and then in what we're going to check for that to be equal to is going to be loop x, and then we'll copy that for the y, and then change u to loop y, and then we're going to make that an and boolean, and then connect that up to a branch up the top there. So if it is equal, what we're going to do is, we don't actually need that branch, I don't think. Actually, no, we will keep that branch. So if it is equal, we are going to grab u, and we're going to promote you to a local variable, and we're going to call you level details. And then we're going to set that over here like that. And what we're going to set it to is that particular element. There you are, like that. So let me just drag that up like that so that it's easier to see. Double click for the reroute nodes, and we can bring all those a bit closer together so it's a bit more readable. And another thing that we could do is, after that's set to level details, we could also have another local variable, and we could say found information, and we're going to call that a boolean, and it's just going to be a regular single one, and we're going to set that to true. And then back at the start over here is, we're going to have a branch, which is going to be a not boolean, and then hook that up to there. So what this is going to say, sorry, by default as well, we want found information to be false. So we come in to the function, found information is false because we haven't found any specific level information that matches with the current loop x and y. So then what we do is, we go through our specific level info, and we break that blah 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 blah. We see if there's a match. If there is a match, then we set level details to that particular element that we found the match for, and we say we found the information. So once that's set to true, then found information not will break there at false, and it'll no longer search for any more new information. And then we have a return node down here, which will go off complete, and then we're going to have level details in there, and we'll grab found information and put that in the return node as well. Sorry if that's confusing. I can't really think of a better way to explain that, but this will definitely work. So if we close that down, close down our other function as well. Check for specific level info. So did we find specific level information? We're going to say branch, and if that's no, then we're going to spawn a random level from our level names. If it's true, what we're going to do is we're going to get our level details. We're going to say break, and then we're going to spawn a level from that particular level information. Okay, I wonder if this will work. I hope it does. So if we just click on our little randomizing level generator thing down here and go into specific level info, you can see that we've set 2 and 2 as the coordinates, and the level name to spawn there is going to be called Finn. So if we hit play, let's just make this a bit smaller, 5 and 5. Fingers crossed. Boom. There's the finish. What you'll notice is that it's actually spawned at 3 by 3 though, and the reason that that's the case is because remember how this was 0 based? We entered in our specific level info, we entered this as 2 because we wanted it to spawn at coordinates 2, but because that is 0 based in the loop, that's actually spawned at coordinate 3 because it counts 0. So what we might want to do, the first option is you could keep that in mind when you put this in here. So if we put 0, 0 like that, and then we hit play, that's spawned over here at 0, 0, just like that. So you can just keep that in mind, or the alternative is when you break this vector here, is you could actually go ahead around it, and then you can say add integer like that, and then plug that into here instead. And we could do the same for the y down here. Just like that. So now this will no longer be 0 based. Where is our thing gone? So now this will no longer be 0 based. So if we type in 1 and 1, oops, my bad, 5 and 5. Did I do that the right way? 1 and 1? Maybe I was meant to go... Maybe I was meant to say subtract instead of add. Okay, so that's gone to 3, and I've set that to 1. So I did that the wrong way. Sorry, my bad. So we're going to add -1, which is the same as taking away 1. So we're taking this vector, which is non-zero based, and we're converting that to a 0 based set of coordinates. That makes more sense. So now if we set that to 1 and 1, it should spawn right on the corner. Boom, just like that. Okay, so that's cool. We've got a way to insert specific levels. So maybe we could have another level in our specific level info. So we've got a finish. Maybe we also want to start. So we'll click add element, expand that. Maybe we can have a start at 3, 3 right in the middle. And we'll add the name down here. And what we're going to do is we're going to call that start like that. So now if we go into our persistent level, go to world outliner, and where's our player start? We can delete that. And then what we'll do is we'll grab our fin, copy that, and we'll call you start. And inside of start, drag that up into levels up here. So this is our start tile. We're going to add a player start into here. And that player start is going to be right at the 0 like that, and maybe just 200 high. And maybe we can change the color of this tile to make it look like a start. So we could go, maybe we can go our pretty rainbow colored one again. Cool. Now, I think that should work actually, just as it is. Nope. What did I... Oh, did they spawn on the same spot? No, hang on. What did I forget to do? Specific level info. It's called start. Coordinates is 0 and 3. Sorry, 3 and 3. Now if I hit play, why are you no spawn? Maybe it's because this... Okay, so if you click on your level generator, that still has the results from before. It didn't update. I didn't change. It hasn't changed to the new defaults that I've put in there. So if you just click that and set that to the defaults and now click play, boom, there we go. We got our start in the center, and we didn't get a finish that time. And the reason because we didn't get a finish is because the defaults in here don't have the finish information. There we go, 1 on 1. Okay, so we hit play. Boom, we have a start and a finish. Awesome. Okay, so to get our player to actually start at the player start, once the player start has been spawned into the world, is what we can do is we'll go set actor location, player character. This is a bit of a workaround, but it'll do the job. So we'll just expand this out here. Off that, we're going to say get all actors of class. And then what we're going to put in there is player start, like that. Just drag this out so it doesn't look so funky. And then we'll say off the array, let's just say get copy, and get the first instance of the player start, because there shouldn't be more than one player start. And off that, we'll say get actor location, plonk that in there, and now that should do the job. So once this is finished spawning in all the levels, it should set the player's location to the player start. So if we go in here and we hit play, there we go, boom, right in the center. So the way that you want to use this to make your levels is if we go into our specific level info, we'll have coordinates for a finish at say 1-1, and over here we'll have coordinates for the start at the other side of the map at 5-5. So then when we hit simulate like that, basically the goal will be to get from your starting position over there to your coordinates to your finish over there, and everything in the middle is going to be randomized. And we can also change the size of the map, so we could go 15-15 like that. That'll just be massive. Boom, massive like that. But now the coordinates of these have obviously, the coordinates are the same, but you want the player to start right over on the edge over there. So in this case, if we go into our world outliner and we find our random level generator, we'll set the coordinates of the start to 15-15 like that. Play. Boom. Now you're all the way over there, and your goal is to get all the way through here to the other side. And you could also add in all kinds of other levels in between. You could have specific things like maybe most of these tiles are filled with enemies, and then perhaps you've got like a couple of rare tiles, like every now and again, like over here, that contain some rare pickup to restore your health or something like that, and you can scatter those all throughout. I'm not going to do it now because my brain is getting really tired and I'm probably not making any sense. But what you could do is before this even begins over here, you could just have begin play, and you could say, like maybe you could have another variable inside of your struct here that could say, it could be a boolean, and it could be get random coordinates on begin play, like that, and that's a boolean. And then what happens is, what you could do is you could do a little for each loop up here like this, break the element, and you could say branch like that. You'd put all of this into a function to keep it nice and tight. Check for entries that need coordinates, like that. And for each of these elements, in a specific level info, if they need coordinates, then what you could do is you could say set, sorry, you want to get this here, and you'll want to say set array element, I guess. Yeah, you want to say set array element, and the target array is going to be specific level info here. That can go in there. The index of the array that you're going to be setting is the current index that you're at. It's the one that has been checked with the needs random coordinates. And then the item that you're going to set it to is, we'll go make, and the coordinates could be, you could say get a let's go make vector, like that. And then you could go get random int in range, random integer in range between 1 and the max number here, like that. And then you'll plug that into there like that. So it gets a random integer that's part of the coordinate system for both you and I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm already bloody nearly done, so we might as well just finish it. See if it works. It might be a bit sloppy, but whatever. So we'll get a random coordinate on the x, a random coordinate on the y. That'll be the coordinates of the element. And we'll also copy the level names from the old element to the one that we're setting it to now. So we'll copy the coordinates, and we'll also copy the that thing there. But sorry, we copy the level names, we copy the boolean, and we'll set it new coordinates because it requested new coordinates. Okay, and then if we have a return node down here like that, hit compile, save, go back into here. That's going to check for entries that need coordinates, and it's going to set the coordinates. So we can plug that into there like that. And then if we go to our specific level info here, let's say we want to start at the same spot every time. Maybe we'll want to change the finish, so we'll say get random coordinates on begin play. So now when we run this, there's our start in the corner like that, but the finish is over there. Now if we do it again, start down there and the finish is way up there. So that'll be randomized every single time. The only issue that you'll have with this is that in here, if you have multiple values, elements of this specific level info that need coordinates, is when you generate these coordinates down here, you'll need to do a quick check to make sure that they're not equal to any of the coordinates that are already in this array, because otherwise what you'll get is you'll get coordinates of two levels stacking on top of each other, and that'll cause problems. I'm not going to show you how to do that because I can't be bothered, but that can be your homework to try and figure out how to do that if you're interested. Sick. All right, that's basically it. I'm going to leave that there. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll do my best to help you out and to solve any problems that you've got. If you've got any requests, why did I spawn over here? Let me spawn in here somewhere. If you've got any requests for tutorials, let me know and I'll do my best to get to them. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace out, and I'll see you in the next one. God, this looks cool, doesn't it? I really like those towers. That's it. Peace out, guys. So one quick thing that I forgot to mention. The way this is set up now, that's in the center of the... No, it's not in the center of the map, sorry. That's in the center of the map now. When you spawn just like that, everything works just fine. But one problem that you'll run into is that if you were to move that over to there, that's still going to spawn in the center. We don't want that. We want it to spawn wherever you place that billboard there. So the way that we fix that is go back into your event graph, go into your pick and spawn level from array, and then over here where we set the location, all we want to do is we just want to add that vector that we've made from the coordinates, and we're just going to say get actor location self, and we just add that to there. So we'll hit compile, save, come out here. Now if we're just in the center, that still works just fine, and if we move you all the way over there, now you spawn over there. So that's cool, because what we could do with that is if we have one in the center, we could probably duplicate you and put you over here. Make sure that all those levels are still there, get rid of the specific info for this one, and then if we hit play, if you hit simulate with two of those in two different spaces, you won't actually get a second grid generated. And the reason for that is if you go back into your event graph and you go to pick and spawn level from array, and you look at the naming here, the way that we had it before was it was set like this. And so because this is being used for two different actors, they're actually both generating instances with the same name, and the instances of the levels aren't allowed to have the same name. So we need to add a pin onto here, and if we right click and say get display name, and then off the object we drag and we say self, and then we plug that into there. Now what's going to happen is that's going to give us the coordinates of this particular level that spawned, and it's also going to give us the name of the random level generator that spawned it, and that'll be different for every single instance of the random level generator. So if we go and hit play now, we'll actually get two different randomized level thingos generating 5 levels each, and they just connect because of how I place them.